of victory and the agony of defeat.
Great ball around the corner, Petticini, he beats them all! Junior Paulo out wide, bumped away from Trindle, Sharks coming through, none of them can hold this!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a live edition of the Tip Sheet Podcast. It's Teamless Tuesday, which means I'm here as your host, John, also known as 4020, joined by my very good mate, Craig, the big fella 60s. Here to talk all things out of Parradise and the NRL. Always stuff happening in our great code, and certainly stuff involving the two teams playing of concern for us this week in the Eels and the Tigers. Perhaps not for the reasons I'd like. The Eels having to fend off the Bears, or maybe losing a senior player to the Bears. We have to wait and see what's happening there. And the Tigers, well, it's the Tigers. So drama aplenty out of the joint venture there. They've given the news cycle fodder for days with the feud between Adam Doueihi or Doueihi and Benji Marshall. We'll get on that lately. We'll get on that very soon. Before we get into all the football, a massive hello to everyone in chat, everyone here live on this Tuesday evening, and a massive hello to my big mate there, who's he's off screen. He's gone. He's had enough. Had enough of this damn football club. No, just kidding. We're here, thick and thin, and yes, as always, mate, a quick check-in on you. How you doing?
Yeah, doing quite well, John. Thanks very much for asking. But and also my thank you to everyone that's there live at the moment. We really do appreciate it. And just a shout out to the Cumberland throw community, because you really are the reason that we do what we do, because we're passionate about the Eels. We're no different to any of you. We're supporters like all of you. The only difference is we put our thoughts onto a website and into podcasts and socials and that sort of stuff. But we share exactly the same hopes and aspirations and frustrations and anger and everything that you feel about our Parramatta Eels. That's how we feel. And we love the fact that you come along for this ride with us, and have done, a lot of you, for the 11 years that we've been around. So if we don't say it enough, thank you. We love you. We love your support. It really does mean a lot to us. John, just quickly getting our usual things out of the way. Just a reminder, no matter what platform you're on, if you can give it a like and subscribe, that would be wonderful for us. And also a shout out to our sponsors, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, and of course the home of the Eels, Parramatta Leagues Club. And as we always say, without our sponsors, it'd be pretty hard for us to do what we do. But I do need to start our podcast on a somber note, John, because at the end of last week, we learned that former Parramatta Leagues Club director Joy Cusack had passed away. Now, Joy was an amazing person, a wonderful club director, because she put members first and foremost with all of her actions, all of her involvement in the club. It was always about, is this in the best interest of the members? And you might think, well, that's what you're supposed to be. That's how directors are meant to be for the members of the club. I can assure you, she absolutely lived that. And she was special to us too, because Joy had this way of making everyone feel special. And for John and I, that would mean that because we'd see Joy at the football, at events around the club, at meetings, anywhere where Parramatta or the Leagues Club were involved, we'd see Joy. And her greeting was always the same with us. She'd say, here's two of my favourite people. And we'd get her arms going around.
Big hug, yep.
Big hug, big kiss. And, you know, you just, and then it'd be settling into talking about, the footy and how we were going. And as I said, she just made you feel special. So we send out our sympathies to her husband, John, and all of her loved ones. There will be a service for Joy on Thursday, and then back at the Leagues Club for for the wake. It will feel strange saying farewell, but we're I think the Leagues Club members, Parramatta supporters, and everyone who knew Joy better for having her in our lives. And
huge part of the reform for Parramatta Leagues Club, and all the success that they've enjoyed there is one thing, but just a wonderful person,
yes.
in and away from the Eels, and a true loss to both the Eels and just the wider community. So, like you said, Craig, the service will be later this week on the Thursday, but hopefully she's in a good place now. Joy Cusack, who Alan's asking, we're talking about, it's Joy Cusack, a former Leagues Club director and a lovely individual. Yeah.
So, so anyway, as I said, that was a little bit of somber news to start. Let's now press on with Eels news. Hit that stinger, please, John.
News team, assemble!
Tell you what, mate, too many of these podcasts have been starting with those terrible little moments in recent weeks. It's been a really bad year for it.
Yeah, we've said farewell to too many people this year, John. I guess that's life, eh? That's
painfully true.
Yes. So, John, on Sunday, the news broke that Junior Paulo was accepting a deal from the Perth Bears. It was a
.au reporting, yeah.
Yep. It was going to be a multi-year deal. And today it was Carianis revealed that it was going to be worth $900,000 per season.
I think Carianis' full story was he hadn't necessarily committed yet, but was weighing up a deal between the Eels and the Bears, where the Eels were somewhere between 500 and 600K, and the Bears were 900K. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. So, as I indicated on the socials on Sunday, when people saw the size of the deal, that you would be saying, look, how could Junior say no to that sort of money? And it would be completely understandable why a bloke towards the end of his career has the opportunity to go to a new club and take up a senior leadership role within the playing group and being rewarded in that way, it'd be hard for them to say no. So everything seemed to be across the line in that regard, and News.com was certainly very bullish about that it was happening. Our sources were confirming everything. And again, let me repeat, that is not sources within the club, that's sources outside the club, but normally sources that are pretty attuned to what's going on. Well, it might not yet be a done deal. There could be a chance, John, as much as we thought, well, this is done, and I even put up a post on the socials, farewell a champion, a legend, an Eels legend. It's not necessarily a done deal.
Well, nothing's come out from the Bears, and certainly there would be a cooling off period regardless. But the follow-up from the news.com article was that there was expected to be an announcement within 48 hours. And here we are from Sunday to Tuesday night, and there has been no announcement. So, was it a deliberate? This is how the game is, right? Like with player manager, and club. Certainly, there is an offer on the table from the Bears, a very, very significant offer. Is this a sort of last ditch Hail Mary from their camp saying to the Eels, "Hey, put something in front of us that's closer. Well, don't have to match, but closer, and we'll sign." I don't know. It's part of the game. It is what it is.
Yeah. You know this with agents, that they will look to do what they can to maximise the deal. The timeline is this, right? So the Eels have had an offer in front of Junior for a while. Junior, at this point in his career, doesn't really want to relocate. That's not ideal. So the first preference is to stay at the Eels. But he was ideally looking for a couple of years to see him out. Then we have the situation where the Eels offer doesn't change. And what do you know? The Bears have been struggling with recruitment, and they're looking for some senior players. And the senior players have, that offer for a senior player has come to Junior. And it's a not insignificant offer coming his way. So now, where it looked as if that was like a definite, and it may still unfold that way, but we have to remember that it's actually a big life decision for Junior right at the end of his career. See, England wasn't going to be in any way ideal for him and his young family. Is Perth any better? Well, maybe a little bit. He's in the same country, but it's still away from the support group of the extended family as well. So what's going to happen? Honestly, John, this is one of those situations where you think you know what's going to happen. And now I guess the only person that knows what's going to happen is Junior, and maybe his agent. And
that is a big one, isn't it? And I again, this is a big decision for Junior and his family, because like you said, Craig, it's not just a case of taking a great offer from the Bears. There is the offset of how much is the cost of the non-material cost, but cost nonetheless of uprooting your family from where it's taken, route in Western Sydney to go to Perth for a couple of years. How close the Eels need to be to that Perth offer to make that balance out? Don't know. That's
and no doubt, John, that when we've seen recent Eels players, senior Eels players retire, there's been roles that have been found for them within the club, be it Dave Gower, Sean Lane, Josh Hodgson, Jordan Rankin, be it in coaching or off-field stuff. There's been that. So perhaps there was something that was going to be in the offing a couple of years down the track for Junior. We don't know. But you would find it surprising if the club hadn't thought about making use of Junior in an off-field capacity when he retired. And whether that would be the case if he went and took up a Perth offer for 2 years. Because if he was going to play for 1, possibly 2 years with Parramatta, that sort of role maybe wouldn't eventuate until he'd finished his football. Who knows, maybe there would have been a transitional period there that might have been possible. We don't know. We don't know what's being lined up. But more than anything else, John, it's that big move of the family that has to be paramount in his mind. And I guess as it would have been, you know what, I haven't had a look at how many of the players that have signed with Perth or PNG either have a family, like a family of their own, or don't have a family of their own. It'll be interesting when the final squads are worked out, how many have had to ship like their family with them, or or whether players are leaving their families in Sydney or Brisbane, wherever they're moving from. But anyway, I'm interested what the consensus is in chat. And there's two questions I have to ask with that. Number one, whether people think Junior's going to stay or go? And secondly, if Junior stays for 12 months, which is what the Eels offer is that something that you'd welcome? Or were you comfortable with Junior moving on? I would have loved to have seen Junior finish his career at Parramatta. I don't want to see him finish his career elsewhere. And I thought another year would just about see him out. But I don't know. What did you think, John? Were you comfortable with Junior moving on? Were you hoping he'd stay for another year?
Scott's got a question or a statement that I'll get to as sort of like a contrary response to what we've been talking about that I want to highlight. Not to call him out, but like to talk about. It's a fair point. Look, again, it's interesting how you try and evaluate stuff like this because you look at it in a vacuum and you look at it relative to Parramatta's recruitment and retention in general. In a vacuum, again, losing Junior Paulo, obviously you want to see him finish his career at the Eels, but losing him in a vacuum to what Perth is offering doesn't seem unreasonable. They're putting nearly $1 million on the table for a guy that's turning 33 in November. Junior's obviously been a fantastic player. And I've called him a unicorn, a rugby league player, for many years because of his unique combination of agility and ball playing and power. There's not too many forwards that enter that kind of territory when it comes to athletic prowess like Junior. Obviously, you've got guys like Payne Haas and, even Tino Fa'asuamaleaui. He's seen a real athletic fall-off from his ability to be explosive. He's a great workhorse now, but he doesn't really have that in him anymore. Junior has been an incredible player for a long time. So you want to keep him on a scene, finish his career as an Eel, that, sort of almost right away that little stint he had at Canberra. But the Perth Bears have come to the table for an absolutely monster deal. So I can understand in a vacuum why we might lose him. The problem is that in the bigger picture, this is another outgoing player against what the Eels have not managed to register as a net gain on recruitment and retention right now. Obviously, Jerome Luai has joined the club. That's a fantastic ad for 1 year. Helps us be hopefully quite competitive next season. And there's been the links to Spencer Leniu. We missed out on Jack Howarth because of the whole Lomax situation in the Melbourne pulling Howarth's availability. So in the big picture, the Eels can't match the Perth offer. That's the problem, isn't it? Like you can't get where the Eels are reported to be at $500,000-$600,000. I think that's really their top out in terms of what you should be paying a 33-year-old forward next year. And I don't think that's disrespectful to Junior, even as storied and experienced as an Eel as he is. The reality is you can't match that Perth Bears offer. But in should they lose him, the Eels have another hole to fill. So I don't really know how to reconcile isolating the actual process to what the eventual outcome could be, because it'd be another loss for recruitment, which means there's that much more pressure on everyone involved to make something happen. And while again, in a vacuum, in a void, when you look at that deal, you can say, can't match it. Couldn't match a Dylan Brown one, because they're both crazy deals. Like Dylan Brown got 1.4 a year, 10-year deal, and I know he was playing fantastic football, but now he's done his ACL, which we're going to talk about later. Terrible news for the Knights. Awful for Dylan, but they were always assuming a huge risk on Dylan there. Same thing with the Bears. If they're signing Junior to a multi-year deal, well, he's had it's mean to say reliability issues, but he's a big fella as an aging forward. He's had some injuries in recent years. So where do you evaluate that as a fair deal for the player in the club? And it's I think again in a vacuum, fine to lose him. I would like to think that rumored offer that's on the table, plus what I could only imagine is a pretty this sort of to what Scott was going to push back with, and how we've been losing players to deals they can't refuse, and that doesn't hold true all the time. Well, some of those deals were insane, like Dylan and whatnot. But he was saying, where's the post-playing career options for someone like Junior? I think there is a post-playing career pathway for Junior Parramatta. I think that would be absolutely part of the handshake and signed contract that he could have at Parramatta. He's a huge leader for all the Pacifica boys and the boys in general. Like not just a multicultural thing there. He is just a straight-up leader for the club. So, I would like to think.
I'd very much see that as his influence as a Pacifica player, his standing as not just as a Pacifica player, but as a local product as well. It would have a lot of value for the Eels, but we can only assume that would be something that they would look at, given the pattern of some recent retirees from the club. And Junior is a very articulate bloke, and he's passionate about his club. He's passionate about his heritage as well. These are the sorts of things that stand well. But you mentioned it, John. If he is to move, it creates a hole. And it's not just a hole in terms of the position. It's a hole in terms of senior players in that position. So what it does, from my perspective, it heaps a bit of extra pressure on recruitment. Now, we don't know what the Eels are, because the Eels are holding all their cards close to their chest. There's been
much of the frustration of fans right now.
Yep. There's been plenty of rumours there about who we're targeting, but we're outside of Spencer Leniu. I don't know, maybe you've heard something, John, but I haven't heard anyone outside of Spencer. And you would assume that if Junior moves on, then it's not just having to land Spencer, it's having to secure another player of relative significance, because even if Junior's career's on the wane, he is a player of significance.
Yeah, he is still a genuine part of the rotation. And given that there is going to be a vacuum at lock forward next year, he would have figured to be one of the players that could handle some of those responsibilities. I don't know, is it going to be Hopgood? Is it going to be Dory? Does Jack de Bellin's option get taken up? There was talk that the Eels were trending away from that. That was a soft media report. I don't know if it hasn't been confirmed by any means, but
there's certainly mail around, John, that Jack isn't going to be have his option taken up for next year. But you and I spoke about this with Junior recently when we were debating about the decision to release Dylan Walker, and we said, well, look, who in the Eels camp can provide Jason Riles with some of the skills that would allow him to have similar sorts of attacking plays available to the Eels?
Yeah, there is a lot of pressure placed on that role.
Yeah, and really the only player that's NRL ready, and let's talk about NRL ready because we're not going to talk about some of the younger players. Well, that's really Junior, who has a kit bag that's similar to Dylan Walker. They're not the same player. There's a vast difference in size, but in terms of the subtlety of the play and the ability to switch between ball runner and ball player, and he was probably the one in the squad that was closest to the mark and has played lock before, to be able to slot into that lock role. And maybe that was going to be something ideal for him too, to be coming off the bench and playing in that lock role. So has there been any consensus, John, on the opinions there in chat?
Yeah, look, I think a lot of people understand that you can't match the Perth offer if that's what it comes down to, just a pure monetary value. I think I saw Jamie. Was it Jamie or Phil? Where is it? It was Jamie saying, would you accept 1 year at 700,000, considering the cash reserves that the club should be projected to have next year? Like, where do you put the ceiling for the club's offer for Junior, Craig?
I think any reports that are around the 500 or 600 are on the money in terms of what I think you should be paying someone who's got a little bit of an injury cloud still. Hopefully the last operation, the clean out, and that has helped in the long term with that. But if you're going on recent seasons, then there's been some issues We've had the toe, wasn't it, John, last year?
He had foot issues. I think he had.
Yeah.
Did he have turf toe? He also, I think he broke his foot in the Pacific Four Nations, the Pacific Championships.
Yeah.
And the other concern, and this isn't a junior concern, this is a team-wide concern, is there is a World Cup coming up, and the Eels have not been treated kindly by World Cups in the last couple of them, in terms of players coming back banged up and the pre-season disruption. So that's going to be a challenge unto itself for Junior. Look, obviously a lot of people want to keep him in chat. And sort of the stuff that we talked about, the leadership void, the ability to play lock forward and cover some of those clear gaps that are there, at least right now, of the roster as projected. So, again, it is interesting to try and reconcile the ability to say the Bears' offer is just too much to match with the fact that the Eels just need to have players, including junior or junior adjacent players, on the roster next year. And this is the conundrum that, again, it is a problem of their own making too, and it needs to be stressed that the Eels are being too slow on other market opportunities, and that's why they find themselves now in a situation where you have this need to keep junior at maybe a premium cost. So you got to get it done then, I guess. Or you let him walk, knowing that you have to replace him, and it's another major gap in the roster you have to fix up. So it's straightforward, but also not, right? Like it's one of those ones that is simple and clear as mud.
Yeah, it was interesting, the response to the socials we put out on Sunday when it looked like, okay, this is a done deal, everything pointing to a done deal. It was a real mixed bag of responses. There were people who were dirty on the club for allowing Junior to be taken up by another club, especially Perth. But then there were plenty as well that said, look, 1 year, reduced contract, that's sensible stuff from the club. So it's a polarising position that the club is in, because I think either way they're going to be damned if they do and damned if they don't.
And look, this is a function too of missing out on Keon and missing out on Barnett, whether you liked. I mean, we were fairly, I think we were in agreement that Barnett was probably going to be he had a good game on the weekend, and he's certainly capable of good games. He's a rep caliber prop, but he's in the same age bracket of Junior, and he got that multi-year deal from Brisbane, and the exact figures are a bit murky because it's been reported as between 800 to $1 million a year. I think it probably trends towards the lower end of that spectrum, but not cheap change. But missing out on him and missing out on Keon has now put the burden on the Eels to secure someone like Lenu and not miss out on keeping Junior.
So, John, I'll throw this question to you, and I'll throw the question to people in chat. At the time that we withdrew from the negotiations with Keon, where the money went way north of $1 million and the length of contract started to stretch out, what did he end up signing for? Was it 4 or 5 years? It's
5 years, somewhere between 1.2 to 1.3, depending on which media outlet you take as gospel, but somewhere in that vicinity. So
So at the time,
plus roughly.
Yeah, at the time, I was thinking, that's way beyond what we needed to look at for Keon. But then retrospectively, and we're here at this point down the track, I have almost non-buyer's regret, where I'm looking back at it and I'm thinking, we know the salary cap is going to go up exponentially in the next couple of years due to the new media agreement, the broadcaster deal, and we're in a position where we haven't really secured the targets that we've wanted to secure. And you think to yourself, well, we know Keon, at that time, St Georgia were winless. They had nobody that they'd signed. He was the first cab off the rank, I think, just about. And no doubt he went to them because their offer massively outweighed both the Rabbitohs.
Financially, the best
So
offer on
it
the
was a
table
financial.
by some margin, yeah. But it's,
So,
it's like,
John, do you have retrospective non-buyers regret like me?
This is a really interesting question. Really interesting question, because this is, again, you look at it in a vacuum, and it was prudent to not be in the market at the very end there for Keon, because, again, what is he, 28, 29-year-old forward? I think the Eels offer was for 4 years, so you're still getting through the rest of his prime into his beginning of his twilight years. But should we have gone 5 years, 1.3, 5 years, whatever it was, 1.2-ish, maybe? It feels a little bit akin to going to an auction for a house, and you go, you're at your reserve, your own reserve, not the house reserve, and someone just keeps slightly outbidding you, and it just keeps climbing and climbing and climbing, and you're trying to justify, I can go, $15,000 past my limit. I go, I'll find a way to make it work, and then someone just goes 100K past, and you're kind of like, should I can't, it's not responsible. And then 6 months later, you look at the house market, and it's like, maybe I should have gone 100K plus. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's it's tough.
That's a bit how I feel, John. And the only thing that I think is an element of uncertainty is that length of the deal that was done. Now, I look at Dylan Brown up at Newcastle. When they gave him the 10 years, it was a matter of, hang on, is Dylan Brown the sort of player that's going to play till he's 35, 36? And everything that we knew of Dylan as a character, like as a person, as an individual, was like, football's not the be-all and end-all to Dylan. And I just couldn't see him being a 10-year player anywhere, let alone at the Eels. So I'm talking about 10 years from now. But my mail on that was that was something that Newcastle were well aware of, but they were so determined to get him across the line.
And this is the new norm. This is the new norm, is that there are teams out there that will absolutely put borderline irresponsible contracts, maybe not even borderline, contracts out there to secure plus talent, premium talent. And so my issue goes back to the fact, it's not that we missed out on Keon that I'm disappointed, because, again, regardless of missing out on other targets therein or around there is just a degree of fiscal prudence that you want from your club. And we do talk about having to commit for a superstar. I'm not sure if Keon is in that bracket. My concern stretches the fact that Keon was what, March, April negotiations?
Yeah,
it's
something like that.
Fair enough, you're talking to Keon for next year for that kind of deal. But we hadn't been talking to, or linked at least publicly to, anyone from the November 1 opening day of recruitment for next year. And we're leaving our recruitment too deep into the season. And fair enough, you want to keep a spot open on your roster. I'm fine with that. 29 out of your top 30 being signed up and available to use in a given week for the first half of the year is like reasonable. But you gotta have, I don't know, maybe we have to just identify our targets better. We have to be more aggressive. I don't know. It's okay, I'm just gonna
I think, John, we had a situation where the previous year, keeping 2 spots up our sleeve resulted in the addition of Dylan Walker. And I'm sure everyone's going to go tick for Dylan Walker as I guess, a mid-season transfer. The other one was Talon De Silva that we picked up in the middle of the year. Now, if we didn't have those spots up our sleeve, we don't recruit those 2 players. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and so like, we've done good things with having the roster spot open, or roster spots open, but it also feels like we're missing the starting gun at times, and that I think that's a fair criticism, and we need to be better at it, because it is a real issue that it feels like we're behind the 8 ball against other teams.
Well, I think
Derek, no one's saying recruitment retention is smarter than other clubs. Come on, like don't misconstrue our words. We're saying that going in with 29 out of 30 on your roster is a perfectly acceptable strategy for a season. Most clubs do it, and no one is saying that.
Well, I think every club does.
You've spoken to us, Derek. You know that we're not saying that recruitment retention is fine, and the people that come on this channel and say that why don't you criticize the club about recruitment, you are not listening, because we are very clearly criticising the club and holding them accountable. We're just like screeching like a 5-year-old coming down from a sugar rush. Like there are ways to talk about this like grown-ups, and that's what we're doing, like grown-ups. We've already said that if the Eels cannot get their shit together this season, that there will likely be a blowback on people like Mark O'Neill and the Recruitment Retention Committee. We've said this multiple times. So can people just stop acting like we're not talking about this stuff? It is incredibly frustrating to have these conversations on a weekly basis when we're saying perfectly reasonable criticisms. We're just not screeching like a child.
Yeah, well, I think we address this on a weekly basis. And I mean, we've just been talking right now about having, like us ourselves, like looking back on things and going, I'm having non-buyer's regret with certain players and thinking, well, we should have pressed the go button with that. And I'm sure, and
literally saying that we need to be more aggressive on the November 1 opening day. Like,
yeah, it's and look, the thing is,
I literally said we're not proactive, Derek. Like, are you not listening to what I just said? That we're not coming out the gates November 1 swinging. This is clearly an issue.
The other thing is too, I would be convinced that the club would be saying they're in a position of their own making.
Have we not been saying that for most of the season now?
Yeah, that's right. And the thing is, anyone who's in the position that the Eels are in right now, where we haven't been landing targets for one reason or another, and the thing is, you can individually look at all the targets.
Some of it is justifiable,
and why we didn't pull the trigger on someone. However, you can't then in totality look at it and go, every decision was right, because there's not a success story in the recruitment to go, well, look, this is the success story.
Yeah, and that's what we're saying, is that you can rationalise and justify a lot of the decisions in a vacuum, but the reality is that there's been misses or decisions. There's been a combination of people that have missed out on or people that have not pulled the trigger on this year that individually all could be rationalised, but has left us in a position where Jerome Luai and Jaden Sewer, who are, again, it is slept on because it happened so early in the season. Jaden Sewer was good recruitment. That's a guy in his prime, 3 years for good value before we even knew that cap was going to be going up by the numbers we're talking about. That's going to be a productive member of the squad next year, but we need more. And that is an absolute truth, is that we need more, and it depends on what happens with Junior, because it adds even more pressure to the need to fill out a spot in the roster. And
one of the things too, John, that I do keep saying, and this is where I'm given a little bit of leeway, is that the recruitment's not done for next year as yet. Now, it's going to be damn hard to find the successes that we want, but I'm not going to pass final judgment on what's happened until final recruitment has been done for next year. And I think that's the other important thing right now. Like we've just said, we think we've missed key targets that we could have secured up to now, right? I need to wait and see what the result is between now and the end of the year. We know they're not going to be sitting there. They're not sitting there on their thumbs. They've made the job is harder for them now. It's as simple as that. If you're not spacing out your recruitment, your job gets harder. And there's holes that have to be filled all through the roster. Holes that have to be filled all through the roster. And we've said, John, I reckon it's about 3 or 4 months ago now, we were talking about this, and then I put out a dedicated video where I was talking about the Eels have to accept that we sit at the bottom of the ladder and that we're not a destination club. By virtue of that, we're not a destination club because players want to come to clubs that they perceive as being strong. Now, we've got everything set up in place to be a strong club, but performances have not been what they need to be for us to be a destination club, which means it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you extra. Plus then, and Rowley wrote a great article about how to leverage other aspects of the club and how to use vision for players and the role that they would play. So you're pitching a very clear vision to each individual player about how the club can help them achieve their goals and what their role will be in the club achieving theirs. And if you haven't had a chance to read it, go back and read it, because it gives a different perspective on club recruitment. And if you and by the way, if you think we're just again that the TCT just points just says everything that's possible for the Eels, read Rowley's article again this week about why are the Eels sitting in the position that we are for the game for the results this year, because she's just done a straight stats analysis which points to look in the mirror for why we sit where we are.
It is literally a problem of our own making. Like, yes, there have been some clubs that have put better offers on the table for us, Newcastle, the Dragons, whoever. But end of the day, this is absolutely Parramatta's own problem. So, which is why we've been consistent in saying that if things don't get done this year and from November for the year after, like, you got to be aggressively using that springboard November 1, come out of the gate swinging to land whoever it is. I don't know, Jack Bostock, whatever that target is, Craig. Whether it's a star back, star forward, whatever it is, got to go get it done. Because, fans have been incredibly patient in general. Obviously, there's been some people out there that have been way more vocal, way quicker, which, again, absolutely your prerogative as a fan to criticise like that. I'm not saying it's right.
Hey, we're all fans. We're all entitled to support however we want.
Beyond that, the larger fan base has been incredibly patient. And the frustration you're seeing bubbling out now is a natural outcome of what's been happening on the field. So we get it, which is why we've been talking about the fact that if they can't nail not just the recruitment now for next year, but from November for 28, then there absolutely is going to be trouble, like big trouble. So that is what it is.
Well, we talk, John, we talk regularly about the Eels don't just need on-field wins, the Eels need off-field wins. It is just as important for the fans to not just be able to go and cheer on wins, or at least better performances on the field on a weekly basis right now, but we need to be given hope, something that we can aspire to as supporters for next year as well. And I would like the club knows every bit of that. I can tell you that when we have meetings for the SGA, and we're talking about what will improve the fan experience for Parramatta, and that's real work that we're looking at. But the most obvious thing that we always say, but the SGA can't control that because it's just a supporter group. But the most obvious thing we say is when the team is winning, supporters are generally pretty happy about their experience. Like, that's the simplest thing the club can do, is to have the team winning. And all the experiences at the stadium, membership events, all these things, they're icing on the cake to having a successful football team that you can go along and cheer for. And everyone knows that. The club knows that. You're going to be the bottom line, the financial bottom line is going to be better with a successful club. I guess it's whether the job can get done. And now we're in a position where the job is harder. The longer we're down at the bottom of the table, the job is harder. And this is one of the reasons why, and I don't know if you've noticed it, John, but we coined it the sugar hit with the signing of Luai, and now it's everywhere. Calling the Luai signature a sugar hit. We said that, like, absolutely, that it was a crucial signing, because even if you get the bloke for a year, if you've got a chance to improve the club's standing in a season, you're gonna make future recruitment easier.
It made a lot of sense just in regards to open salary cap space. the need for a 5'8" to again bridge the young kids coming through. Like it worked out. So, yeah.
I'm just looking at the time, John. We're nearly hitting 20 past 8, and we're still talking about what's happening with junior recruitment.
In chat, I'm seeing some talk about Shane Richardson. There was a little blurb in, I think, the Sunday papers linking Shane Richardson to an underperforming club, which, the Eels certainly fit that mould. I don't know if it's Parramatta that's being linked to him, Craig.
How did his last gig go?
Well, that's what I was going to point out, is that does anyone really have roster envy about the West Tigers right now? Because their whole gimmick of paying for Penrith players, how's that worked out for them? Like, I don't know. Like, maybe he's a better fit for the Eels than Mark O'Neill. I don't know. That's obviously hypothetical, but look, if the Eels move on for a new head of football or general manager, whatever the role you want to call the role, I feel like you should be aiming a bit higher. Like, go get a big dog, not Richo.
Well, when was his last success?
Well, he was the belle of the ball at the Tigers for a few years because they were, constantly going to be making the finals, but never did it. Where was he before that? Unironically, where was he before that? It wasn't just South Sydney, was it?
I'm just trying to think. I think it was South, but to be honest, I haven't tracked where he's been because he's been in and out of
it was South. There you go.
Cumberland.
Yeah.
So look, hey, if the club goes in a certain direction, so be it.
But, look, you can't blame. Yeah, you can't blame Summit on him. I agree, Hasties, but their roster has been incredibly overrated by the media for a number of years, propped up by the hype for Benji Marshall as a coach. So I look at that roster and I don't go, damn, I'm jealous. Like, they've got some players that are better than us in certain positions. They've got players that are worse across the board in other positions. He's been part of some premierships, I agree. Hasty saying he's won at 2 of the 3 clubs he's been at, that being the 03 Panthers? Is that where he won the other premiership? And the 14 Rabbitohs? He's not a bad operator, but I don't know. I look at his recent body of work and I don't say, damn, that's going to be that fixes the issues we've got with recruitment. Like, just signing Penrith Panthers is literally what he did.
Well, John, maybe he has a reputation in rugby league circles or with player agents or players themselves. Sullivan's
a fair shout out. I don't know if you can pry what's his name away from Melbourne, Frank Panisi, with the challenge of turning the Eels around. If you're talking about those kind of guys, I don't know.
Hang on, are we sacking buckets already?
No, I'm just talking in the hypothetical. Since we've had the tenuous link to the Eels there. The Eels need to really shoot for the sky if they're going to make that move. And anyway, he did make those signings, Brad. But how does that lift their roster? Luai, Pierce Paul, Coruscant, May, and Taruva, and yet they're below us on the ladder. For all the fanfare about the big signings they've made.
I guess, John, it comes down to, is the issue the signings or is the issue
that is an important distinction. How much is it on the coach and the culture?
I'd ask this. Of all the players that Wests have recruited, how many have advanced by being at the Tigers and how many have regressed as players?
And it is incredibly unfair to leverage all the negatives just on Shane Richardson. That is not how it should be done. I agree. But I just look at their recruitment strategy and I don't see something that improves the Eels. Matt Cameron, that's sort of person we should be aspiring to target, yes. And there's even a strong connection to Parramatta there historically. So I don't know if you can pry him away from Penrith, but that's a dude that built an incredible system and actually has a strong link to the Parramatta Eels. So that would be my number one target, I agree. But that's the hype. I did see a question from Joel, who was on two fronts. Earlier in the podcast, he was asking what we thought about Jackson Coyner's debut in the Cup, Craig, and then what was his contract status for next year, because I think it's a dev deal he steps up to next year. Is that right? He was Flegg.
Sorry, who was that?
Jackson Coyner. 3-year deal with the Eels.
Jackson
was Flegg dev top 30, I think.
I don't know if don't know that he's top 30 next year. But
no, Dev next year, I think, maybe.
Yeah. I'm not sure, but I'll tell you what. For anyone that watches him play, he's fast tracking towards NRL.
Good debut.
And we'll talk about that shortly. Let's get into. And we had I had a nice little message that I know was there in chat about our mate Luke Stowe giving us a bit of a plug on the Levels podcast.
What a legend, Luke. Yeah, he's anyone that's going over to Vegas, by the way, he'll be one of the hosts there for the Parramatta stuff. So you'll be having a great time and be in great hands of Luke and the pub he was teasing that they're going to be hosting events at. So look forward to that.
Yeah. The Levels podcast with him. Justin Horro, Willie Mason. It's the terrific trio, those three. So it was a blast having Luke join us, and it was just to have him able to respond so quickly in the afternoon about joining us in Sturlos as well. It was great. So it's good to work with a professional, John. Now, I'm not saying you're not the professional. I'm saying he's right. Like neither of us are the professionals.
Some might say there are levels to this.
Yes, when you're talking about podcasters, there's a reason that he works with Willie Mason and Justin Oro.
Just a wee bit of production value on their end compared to the humble tip sheet. Yeah.
They might have a few more viewers than what we have. Just a bit, but we love every one of our viewers, that's for certain. John, just very quickly, can you take us through some of the key points in each of the team list changes or inclusions this week? Because rather than reading through five grades...
Banging through the grades. All righty. Going from the top in the NRL, biggest news to the Eels this week is the return of the man that's in the headlines for the Blue and Gold in Junior Paulo, who comes back in on the bench. It's an easy in and out swap for him this week. No dramas about who he's coming in for. Luca Moretti, Category 1 concussion against the Panthers. He misses that cutoff by 1 day for the mandatory 11-day stand down, which means he's out of action this week. So Junior comes onto the bench. Beyond that, I think it's an unchanged team. Will Penasini confirmed to play this week in jersey number 3. Ronald Volkman partnering Mitchell Moses. Sam Tuivati still set the start. Talon De Silva, that's probably the other thing of note, Craig. Copped that mean Falcon when he didn't even mean to charge down that Cleary kick, the Cleary clearing kick. Say that 10 times quickly. And thankfully he's being cleared not only of a concussion, but even just some nerve impingement because he got rattled real hard by that kick. So that's the major change in the NRL. Extend the roster, you've got Raz Namva, Riley Smith and Jonah Pezzett. So if there is something wrong with Talon, of course, Riley can come into the team. And then for the girls, well, it's another week and there's another player out. It's pretty much par for the course for them. We'll talk about them shortly, Craig, but I thought they were quite courageous in their loss to the Warriors. Some controversy there because there was a try awarded in the same corner that was taken away in very similar circumstances that probably decided the game on either account. But for them, they lose Rory Owen. Big out in that game, big out this week. Fleur Ginn is back and she takes her place in the centres. Rosemary Beckett will continue to work in the halves alongside Rachel Pearson because of the Cassie To'i-Hicks suspension. Whew. And then thankfully, Keely Joseph dodged an injury. Craig, I was really worried there. She left at halftime, helped off the field with her knee, but got it strapped up and seems to be okay. And then we've got Ruben Charrington, Tessic Williams, Boss Kapua, and Kylie Gray on the bench. Chloe Jackson does return from the injury ward, but she's on the extended roster, so something to monitor this week, whether she comes into the team or plays in the Women's Premiership. Speaking of the Women's Premiership, there was no team list. Is there been one posted since I last checked at 6:45? Women's Premiership. There is still no Women's Premiership. Okay. So that is TVA, unfortunately. In the Cup, though, Arpa Title's back from the injury ward and he takes his place at fullback. Normally there'd be some consideration for Josh Papali to drop back and play reserve grade, Craig, if he wasn't using the NRL. But given the proximity of the two grades in terms of time, they're both playing on a Sunday afternoon this week. I would imagine that.
It's is there an NRL? No, there's no NRLW curtain raiser at CommBank, is there?
No, it's a Wagga Wagga Magic Round for the NRLW.
Yeah. So I don't get like it's a standalone first grade, isn't it?
Lidcombe
The
Oval,
NRL.
yeah. Sorry, NRL's
Because
standalone comeback, yeah, and they're playing at Lidcombe Oval
Yeah,
this
yeah,
week.
because that's what I was saying. The lower grades are at Lidcombe, and this isn't, of course, a Parramatta home game. It's a West Tigers home game. So they're staging their lower grades at Lidcombe Oval rather than having either of the lower grades at Combank Stadium. So a little bit disappointing with that, John, and being able to try to cover all those games. I guess technically could travel to Lidcombe and still, you'd still be pushing it, wouldn't you? It's 4 o'clock kickoff, isn't it?
And unfortunately, because it's essentially what will be a curtain raiser slot for the Cup, it means that the 2 players that are surplus the requirements in the NRL this week will not be made available for this game. So that means no Joe Ash, most likely, based on what we've seen this year. And then, probably no Tony Matteoli, based on the team as named. So they look like that with Harper at fullback. Otherwise, I believe it is an unchanged team. Cruz, Natili Schmidt, the dummy half utility there. Jackson Coyner getting his second NRL New South Wales Cup cap, sorry. So Damascus Nemia is back in the squad this week as well. A lot of young players that had great games against the Panthers. We'll talk about that very shortly. And then, again, no women's premiership update. And then in Flegg, what was it? Bo Lucian's back in the front row. So he bumps Salmaki back to the interchange bench. He'll work alongside Jordan Miller. We are missing a lock forward. No Zach Visconti this week. I don't know if he's hurt himself or been suspended, Craig, but there is a TBA or a blank in the lock spot right now. So not sure who fills that in. If someone drops back from the Cup or if they go somewhere else in terms of their depth options. But Lucian's inclusion, the big change this week.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, we might press on with some last takes from the weekend's matches of Eels games. John, the NRL, we've said plenty about it. First and foremost, we've said that we need to look in the mirror because we're just not getting the moments that will win games. We acknowledge some of the poor officiating that happened in the game that was possibly costly would have been costly to the Eels, but ultimately the game was there to be won. We didn't win it. We can look at lots of reasons. It goes down. The way I see it, John, now, after all the dust has settled and a few days have passed, is that we have to, or the Eels have to as a group, look at that as an indicator that if they're going to match it with the Panthers in a game like that, where for the most part they stuck with the game plan, which exposed the Panthers' left side defence and had some successes there, that if they stick to game plans, if they execute, if they stay on the same page, they should be able to get wins between now and the end of the year. Last week becomes a wasted exercise if they don't repeat what they were doing well in that game, or if they don't learn from the mistakes that they made in that game. It was a game where if that had taken place at the start of the season or earlier in the season and the Eels were still in contention for finals football, you'd take a lot of encouragement out of a game like that. You really would.
I want to talk about too is that this is the second year running where the Eels have really, like last 6 weeks, again, the football has been pretty, not perfect by any means, but the effort has been really good. And that's 2 years in a row we've now seen it where the Eels have sort of hit that buffer where they were technically mathematicals, but really out of the running for the finals, and they've put it all together. So is that good, bad timing, for lack of a better way of putting it? Like, where they've figured it out, but at a bad time. So it's good timing to have it, but bad timing to do it when they are. Or they just are playing better when the pressure's off. And that's a big challenge for the coaching staff and the playing group next year. Like they've shown 2 years running now that obviously that last year they were just playing better football in general. They were electric on both sides, and they were beating, the eventual premiers, beating contenders. They were taking, all comers left, right, and centre. And then this year they've started to put it back together in the last 6 weeks. with the pressure off, they need to be able to do that from round one, Craig. It's non-negotiable, isn't it? And that's one of the big things I think in the big picture of what we've seen last month. But the other thing I was going to say too, and you're right, like you're absolutely right about end of the day, we grumble about the referees, but you want the accountability goes on the playing group to ice those moments that we always talk about where they're doing a lot really, really well on defense, but offensively there's just a bad pass, a drop ball that's killing momentum. And even at an 85% completion rate, it's a reminder that not all errors are created equally, same as not all missed tackles are made equally. And for the Eels, they had some really ill-timed errors in possession. But the other thing too that I wanted to, because we grumbled about it, and neutrals are saying, and Parramatta fans are saying, you couldn't score with a player in the bin for 20 minutes, which is a fair criticism. And I think this is like such a reinforcement of the two things can be true paradigm, where, the Eels should have done better with the ball when they had a player up for those 2 10-minute periods. But the reverse is true. As much as people say you can't complain at the referees, the Panthers could only score on the Eels on the back of some serious howlers. Whether it was missed forward passes, incorrect play of the balls, missed a mega forward pass, missed knock-ons. Like, those two things had that convergence where the Eels were inefficient when they had the opportunity, but Penrith were gifted efficiency by error. So I don't know what the conclusion of that is. Obviously, it's that Penrith have got a better roster than the Parramatta Eels, and they're better coached too. Ivan Cleary, a very experienced NRL coach, premiership-winning NRL coach, and Jason Riles, in his second year, is very much still learning things. But they've had the ability to ice those big moments for 6-7 years now, Craig, and that was very evident in that game. The Eels, I do want to commend the effort, mate, because I think that they've been building, even considering that South Sydney second half, they've been building for a while now. But I just want to see that when the stakes are still high, when the season is still live, that they can put these same consistent efforts in defense and hopefully eventually offense together. Because what we saw against Penrith, if they're doing that on a weekly basis, they're in the 8. Like, offensive struggles and all, if you're defending the way you did against Penrith and putting your bodies on the line the way they did, you're in the 8. Even with the talent gaps that we've got by way of injury and roster management, you're in the 8. And that just needs to be how they normalize that. I don't know. That's on the playing staff, the coaching staff, and whatnot. But just need to see more of it.
Yeah, John, for me, and I keep banging on about this every week, it comes down to completions. The Eels have either won, or in the case of last weekend, should have won in completing above 80%. So if they get the completions in the way that the NRL is played these days, Rolly wrote about this as well in her article, but it's been something that we've talked about as well, is if you're not completing and you hand the ball over to the opposition, you're putting fatigue on your own defence.
Yep.
You start to look, and this is where people look at the team's performances and go, oh, we're not fit. No, we're just handing over so much ball to the opponents that there's a lot more involved in defending. Like, there's a lot more fitness involved in defending, a lot more likelihood of fatigue when you're trying to stop the opposition than when you've got the running yourself.
It's always been a factor in the game, but in the 6 again, the set restart era of the game, it is the decisive factor, isn't it? Like, you can pull out the odd win when you're doing that, and when you're not doing it, but it is more of a handicap than ever. And I know that in the past, running meters are also just directly related to possession too. Running meters depending on who you ask in the stats community, there is no macro statistic that is a perfect correlation towards victory, but net running meters over your opponent tends to be one of the more predictive, simple stats, and that is oftentimes associated to possession. More ball you have, the more running meters you have, in the 6 again era, mate, when you're turning the ball over and you're making more tackles and you're working from deeper in your own half because of the territorial splits, it is a massive hole to try and dig yourself out of, isn't it? And the Eels have been all too guilty of it this year.
Anyone that's played football or done this sort of training knows that if you're just running forward, that's so much easier than up and back, or up, hit the ground in a tackle, a collision, back, turn, chase someone that's maybe, if a break's been made, move laterally as well as up and back. It's draining. It's why in training sessions and pre-season that teams do those Malcolms of the up and back, hitting the ground at each point, up, run 10 metres, hit the ground, run back, hit the ground, run up, hit the ground. It's like that effort of getting up off the ground. I think someone talked about the levels of fitness in rugby league players and talked about road runs and those sorts of things, but saying that the real fitness would be if you, every 10 metres in a road run, you are having to tackle someone or knock someone to the ground and get up off the ground.
A long interval-based aerobic fitness that is consistently interspersed with heavy anaerobic conditioning. It is a very unique sport for that. You got to be very fit to do rugby league at the highest level. Like in general to play rugby league, but the highest level, like these guys are, you can understand why they're the big fellas fatigue.
Yeah. So just moving on now for some of the other takes. NRLW, very unlucky. I actually had the chance to speak to Boss Kapua this afternoon. John, she lives local to where I am, so I had a bit of a chat about the game. It was, I thought it was really unfortunate that the Warriors in the first half got a try in the same corner off an extremely dubious forward pass.
That was them.
And then in the last second of the
game, yeah. Look.
That they find that the Eels have passed the ball for. When I looked at that Warriors pass, and it was the winger had to reach so far forward to even catch the ball. Like that's how lofted out forward it was. Now maybe it was the camera angle. I don't know but it was grossly. It was cruel for a team that had been getting hidings in the first 3 weeks and had managed to turn it around against a very strong Warriors team and match the Warriors physically. It was a cruel result. I hope the girls take positives out of it rather than feeling deflated about putting in that sort of effort and coming out best.
Easily a season best performance from the Parramatta Eels in this game. A lot of work to be done defensively, but I thought that the effort and defense was so far and ahead of anything else that's shown this year. And offensively, there is a lot to be done. I think they were very one-dimensional outside of the incredible performance of Abby Church, who played a virtuoso performance with the ball in hand. Huge dummy half run.
That might have been the best I've ever seen Abby play.
Which is a fair compliment.
She's had some great games. That was
huge defensive tackles, dynamic. I mean, we saw an incredible chip and chase. Abby was so far and away the best player on the field on either side that it wasn't funny. But we saw good performances across the park. I think the middles actually end up a bit in this one here. They actually did a bit of platforming there, just that the spine couldn't take advantage of it, which, it's unfortunate. Didn't help losing Rory Owen midway through the contest to a concussion. She's obviously the other strike player that you can sort of throw the ball to in very basic structures and expect her to, or look for her to make something happen. But yeah, big scare there at halftime was Keely Joseph, who looked to have recurred the knee injury from the preseason. But we thankfully saw her come back onto the field in the second half, so it was very nice. It's going to be a tough season, Craig, because obviously they're still winless after a month of football now. But they took some strides forwards in this game and just got to bring that same effort and defence to the table against the Knights in Magic Round, but also apply some polish to the offence because they just didn't ask enough questions of the Warriors. And like you said, with all those criticisms and praises on the board, at the end of the day, the game came down to the fact the Warriors got away with a questionable pass at the end of the first half to score, and at the end of the game in the second half in the exact same situation, the same spot, the Eels got pulled up on one that was, maybe it was forwards, it was flat at best, but the fact that one was caught and one wasn't is always frustrating because you just if you're going to let the girls or the boys play, let them play. And that was a case of one didn't and one did. So incredibly frustrating. And I think you saw that in some of the players, and they left the field pretty devastated, pretty fired up in that regard. But they played a much better brand of football. And again, the problem is that this was their starting point in round one, you could say they're going to come good and make the finals, but they've left themselves a month too late in a competition that barely runs 3 months.
Yeah. I hope they can find a way to get the ball into Martha Matteoli's hands a bit more because she's barely seeing it. The only time she's really seeing is when she's coming in looking for it. They're not really presenting her with opportunities to show what she can do. And she's a devastating runner of the football. And for her to not be able to feature on try scoring because the ball's not just getting into her hands it's a shame. Okay, let's talk about New South Wales Cup because the Eels had a magnificent 10-6 victory over the top of the table Panthers, who are almost at the point of wrapping up a minor premiership. And the Eels have sort of brought them back a little bit closer to the pack. But it was the manner in which it was achieved, John. It was almost a carbon copy of the way the NRL team took it to the Panthers. Yeah. And the physicality was off the charts in this game. And the commitment in defence was something I hadn't seen the likes of in New South Wales Cup this season.
Insane desperation on the goal line, like just the amount of goal line stands they had in this battle. That the provisional minor premiers in Penrith had quality looks at their goal line and could only get over once. Real testament to the depth of the effort that we saw in that game. Easily their best performance of the season, Craig. Like, obviously it's been a tough year for them, but they've had some decent results here and there. The 10-6 win though, goodness, like
what a great and what a great evening of football it was, because there was a good crowd up there at Kellyville. There was a great atmosphere in the stand there at Kellyville as well, and the teams delivered out on the field. Was the tension that was there, especially at the end of the game, at the end of both games, really. But that 10-6 scoreline, to get a scoreline of 10-6, lets you know that this was a physical game where there was no quarter given by either team. Penrith. When I was speaking about who caught the attention, I thought this was easily Lorenzo Talatina's best performance. Maybe certainly this season.
Given the caliber of opposition, and I was saying to you, Craig, that you look at his stats. There's good stats there. He ran the ball really well. 8 carries, 64 meters, 6 tackle breaks. That's great numbers. But he could have had half a dozen line breaks. Like, Penrith barely called him at least 6 times, maybe more, and a lesser team would have let him break the line, because the way he was timing and choosing his runs was really, like, the intuition was fantastic. And it was just the caliber of the opposition that kept him in check statistically, because he still created plenty of havoc on the park. So I thought he was fantastic. And look, this is a case of...
What about Riley Smith, John? Because Riley will tell you that he had completely recovered from his sternum injury. We've seen footage in some of the games in New South Wales Cup since he's come back where he looked like he was feeling it.
Wearing some contact to the chest that was keeping him down, So
Yeah. But this was a game, I thought this was easily Riley's best game of the season. The physicality he brought into the game. We were seeing that typical competitive edge that he brought to the team, where every time the ball was there for a kick from the Panthers, he was ripping in and putting all sorts of pressure on. And if he didn't make the actual tackle, because I reckon there was about 3 times where he effected a proper tackle on the kicker, so there's no penalty, he's wrapped the arms, he's taken the player down. It's not been dangerous, and that's the level of pressure that he was putting on. And if he wasn't making a tackle like that, he was getting so close to them that he was putting the kick off, and it was just relentless through the game. He also took the team forward well, and he engineered a big line break. Was it Tyrese Lakini that he put through the gap?
Edge, yeah. So, he looks like he's ready to come back into first grade now. If Jason Riles is going to select him, if there's any doubts about Talon De Silva this week, then Riley should be selected I think now, based on form and the fact that he's not been impeded by that sternum injury as he was, even that Newcastle game where they were very courageous in that loss, he was left on the floor a couple of times where there'd been strong contact with the sternum where it was clearly incredibly painful. I know that they lost the start before last week against the AJ's Roosters in heavy fashion, but between that game and the game before that where they beat Manly, I think that's 3 weeks now plus the bye, where he's looked like he's back to like you're never full fitness at this point in the season, but back to a level of fitness where he could be feasibly reintroduced to the calculations in the NRL on a meritocratic basis. And there is now a conversation to be had about what is the best configuration in the NRL. Is it Talon and Riley, or is it Talon and Edwards? With the way that Riles wants to run his 2 dummy half rotation. So I think that Riley's done well to put himself back in that conversation now. So well done to Riley. Great game on the weekend. 50-plus tackles. He missed a few, but the actual efficiency is still very much in the fine areas. You mentioned Tyrese Lakini, Craig. He led the game with 187 metres on the ground. He's very quietly had an excellent year. Dual position versatility. He plays on the edge and through the middle when the team requires either of it. Flegg eligible still this year. He's dropped down a couple of times to play under 21s, but has spent the vast majority of his games in Cup. He's a guy that's had a bit of a sleeper season, and you talk about guys. Well, Riles has put a benchmark out there for guys that need to get 50-ish games to their name. He'll be there next season at that threshold. He's played a bit of Cup last year, played a lot of Cup this year. I think that I don't know what his contract status is, Craig, but if you're looking at a guy that might be flying under the radar for an NRL debut at some point in 27, I think Tyrese might be your guy. He's been very good this year.
Both he and Will Latu go to top 30 deals next year. It's sorry, I just received a screenshot over some garbage that was in chat. That's all.
No, it's people are on it.
Yep. Anyway, I hope that that person's not going to be there very soon. I mean, like, ridiculous. We don't need that sort of stuff. Anyway, the other Araz played great, John. Really physical, got over his opponent all through the game. Scored the winning try, wasn't it? And was just like, as soon as he had that, ran that line towards the corner, he just put the foot down, and he wasn't going to be stopped for that try. I thought it was one of the most confident performances I'd seen from Araz.
He was throwing his body around in the right ways in this game. Like, he was really yeeting some defenders. Like, there was some aggressive physicality to his runs. Love to see that. And look, he's one of those players that's been given the taste of first grade. He knows what it takes now. And I think he's responded in the right fashion you want to see from a young player. He's gone back and he's lifted his game in reserve grade. And this, up against the best this week, or last week rather, he did really well.
And outside him, young Vivella continues to play really well at this level.
He's I think there's a little bit of what I was talking about with Tyrese with Devontae. He's I think Tyrese probably had more raps on him as a prospect coming through the Parramatta pathways. Big, robust forward that's got multiple positional versatility is always really good. But Devontae was put into Cup this year. Oh, look, from our perspective, it was almost like a surprise. Like, not not from the club's perspective, they would have much better things that would have been informing of the decision, information that is. But he's made a lot of post winners this year, hasn't he? Came up, Flegg eligible. The team's been in some pretty ordinary form, but he's scored a bunch of tries. He's done some nice work rucking it out, and he's been look, not an out and out like speedster, but he's shown some good wheels on the sideline, and he converts a lot of his line breaks into points, or close enough to points that it takes the opposition a great play to stop him. He's been a very, very pleasant surprise.
He's caught me, but his pace has caught me by surprise, John. I didn't realise how fast
I agree.
Devontae was. But now, can we also? I think this is really important that we talk about Jackson Coyner, because this was his New South Wales Cup debut performance.
And a player that obviously we've put some pretty big raps on in our coverage this year. Joined the Eels as an incumbent Australian schoolboy from the Broncos, so obviously a very good get from the Parramatta recruitment team. And as much as we will criticise them where they need to be criticised, this was a victory, albeit a smaller one on the scale of the NRL presently. But Coyner's made a big impression for SG Ball, Jersey Flegg, now Cup. In this game, I only got credit for 3 runs, which I feel like he had a few more, but maybe not. But it was his defence, Craig, that really caught the eye. There were some not just good tackles, but some like important, dominant tackles. I think Jack Cole got cut in half on the Parramatta goal line late in the game during a run of possession to Panthers, where they had a chance to steal the march on the Eels and get ahead on the scoreboard. I thought Coyner's physicality was great, and I think you'll speak to it as well. Only 3 runs credited, but his off-ball work was excellent. There was a lot of support, decoy work that you want to see from a young guy coming into the game. And it's a reminder.
Seemed like a lot of link work as well.
And a lot of link work too, which again, talking about Parramatta's need to lock forward. Well, you got a young guy coming into reserve grade and be able to help distribute the ball cleanly. Like what you see there. And again, a reminder that sometimes the stats, they're data points. They're used to inform yourself of a player's game, good or bad. They don't always give you the full picture. And clubs obviously use more advanced data in terms of like support plays and whatnot. And what we get presented there is 3 runs, 23 metres, and then some nice defensive numbers. Doesn't really reflect the debut he had. He was excellent.
Yeah, what I liked was it felt like there was an air of confidence about how he played. I had the opportunity to catch up with him after the game, and he was really pointing towards the other players, because he said, how good it was to be able to play with fellas that have been playing NRL and what that meant for him to be able to play alongside NRL players, and also to have the experience of playing against fellas that had played in the NRL. So
Tim's asking how big do you reckon Coyner is, because he's not a small lad. He's got to be 190 plus.
Oh yeah.
He's
easy, because
I've said it before. His build reminds me of a young Pat Carrigan, like in terms of just like how he projects athletically.
Yeah, he's not like a Sean Lane type tall, but I'm about 187 centimetres, something like that, and I had to look up to talk with him. Not much, but enough that I'm thinking, well, he's certainly a little bit taller than me, so has to be at least 190.
Yeah.
He's got, and given his age, another couple of pre-seasons, and then you'll start to see whatever NRL physique he developed.
The filling out in that frame. Like someone like Pat Carrigan, who came in as like a rangier back rower and has now got the meat in the frame to play front row or lock forward. You'll see that eventually with Jackson. But a lot of young players had good games here. I think he threw a couple of errant offloads, which was not just his fault. I think a few of the boys in the team threw some errant offloads in this game. But I thought Josiah Finau is still building nicely in the back end of the season, which is great to see. He's had to work hard to find some form this year as part of that process as a young player coming into reserve grade. And I think he's really starting to find his feet now, which was good to see. Equally, off the bench, Max Fumiano Popo. I thought, 70 metres off 8 carries, which is nice production, but defensively, 32 tackles, 1 missed in a game where the Eels needed every bit of defence they could get. I thought Popo, as another very young player in this grade, had a very good game. And at the end of the day, Craig, I've sort of vented a little bit in recent weeks about the club not necessarily putting all the young players into this team, given that there is a mandate from the coach about a threshold of experience you need to see in the NRL or New South Wales Cup to be NRL consideration or in NRL consideration. And I think to an extent, I'm still a little bit agreed to the fact that, you know, someone like Lincoln Fletcher might not be there right now, which I think you could make an argument for. But when you've got Leilua, Vivella, Talataina, Talangi, Riley, who's obviously just NRL proven, but he's still there, but Lakini, Funayuta, Pryke, Namva, Tupou, who's just out of Flegg and is still, you know, a young player that could be in consideration, Koina and Popo. When you say you want to be a development club, be who you say you are. That is being who you say you are. That is putting the young kids there and giving them an opportunity to play against the best team in the competition. And they rose up to the challenge. And they're going to take their lumps. They got hammered by the Roosters the game before that, before the bye. But they've bounced back with a huge game against the best team in the competition. So that's what I want to see. You're a development club. Develop. And they did. They're doing it now. So well done.
Yeah. John, let's touch on the New South Wales Women's Premiership. Like the NRLW, a 2-point loss, coming from behind against the Panthers and couldn't convert the last try that was scored. And what another special effort that was from Freedom Crichton-Rapati.
I was talking to a mutual friend of ours in Jeffro, and he made a great comparison. And again, this is just like in terms of the running style, but there's a bit of the guru to the way Freedom Crichton-Rapati runs. Eric Grove Sr. Just the leaning into contact, not low but low enough to just consistently bulldoze people. And running out in behind the ruck the way that the guru used to as well. She's having a hell of a year. And I know they had a narrow loss, Craig, but Penrith are a quality outfit. They're actually right up there with the Eels on the ladder. So this was a game that we knew was going to be relatively tight. And unfortunately, Penrith jumped out of the box, and scoreboard pressure, it carries some weight, and the girls just didn't quite have enough in the tank. I think in the end of the day, it was one missed goal that split the teams from a draw, and Eels couldn't quite steal the win.
Yeah, it's and I guess this is going to happen because when you're talking about a young team, well, this is really like the Eels under-21s team in terms of the players. That's how the club
has chosen to roster their women's premiership side. There is some experience in there too, but I like the call. It is the more bolder, big picture look, taking younger players and affording them the opportunity to play in a higher degree of difficulty competition. But it's going to yield better results for the club in the big picture. And I know there's struggles in NRLW right now presently. And some of that I think they can get on top of in the short term. Some of it I think that is going to be facilitated by the decisions they're making here in this grade. And that'll help lift the NRLW up. So, yeah, they lost the game on the weekend. Still love it again. That is a case of being who you say you are. The women's premiership squad is 100% that. It's a development squad, lots of young talent, some nice experienced players to help guide them around the park and through the season. So I think the model, I always talk about, process and results, Craig, and that's one of the things we sort of grade things on. Right now, the women's premiership is 100% good process. And it is trending towards good results. There is no guarantee it's going to be good results because that's not how football works. You just can't guarantee you're going to get a superstar wave of talent coming through. But the signs are positive. Kylie Gray's up there, Riverlea Arlaw, Fontaine Tafunga, Tess McWilliams. They're all establishing themselves in the NRLW. And there's more in this group that'll be there like Freedom. And hopefully others like, Bowie Ma Chong and, Zion Liga as well. And more in that squad too. But this is very much the right process in this grade. And that's why I can easily stomach a loss like what we saw on the weekend, because you're going to get bad results out of good process sometimes.
Yeah, it's a team which is chock full of 18, 19, 20-year-olds who've graduated from the Eels pathways in the last couple of years. And the interesting thing will be that it's probably going to present Steve Georgalis with some interesting choices that he's going to have to make in really between now and next year, because I don't know how you hold back someone like Freedom for a start. Like I just don't know how you do that. And as young players, they've adjusted really well to playing open age football. So that's all very encouraging. And look, we recognise there's a chasm of difference between NRLW and New South Wales Women's Premiership, but these players, there's ones there that are already showing that they can make that jump straight to NRLW, the players that you mentioned before. So, and John, finally, the heartbreak of the Jersey Flegg, 18-0 up against near top of the table Panthers in that grade. And unfortunately, you talk about errors with the NRL team. Well, they've gone from 18-0 and there's been an intercept thrown. There was a drop ball in the red zone where the Panthers went the distance in the 6 tackles to score. It was just unfortunate that where the Eels had all the running, when I say all the running, they earned all the running. Like it was a
second half saw a string of penalties to
physical.
Yeah.
Oh, so what was the final count with the penalties?
Oh, they actually do keep that stuff on the. One sec. But yeah, the Eels were in the box seat. Second half, there was a run of penalties to Penrith. Obviously, Eels would have deserved plenty of them, but just the whistle reversing hurts a lot. What have we got here for penalties? Oh God, it was 11-1. Okay, it was way worse than I remembered. Okay, it wasn't. The Eels weren't that bad. They weren't that bad in their discipline.
It was. There was some very, very vocal supporters up there during the game. I couldn't let rip with a few comments I wanted to make. I think you did hear me over the bar TV during the reserve grade.
Flag Boys comments on the reserve grade game, I think.
I wasn't far away. From the bar TV coverage there, so they might have heard my voice a few times then. But I was blogging furiously during the Jersey Flegg, so it wasn't possible to yell out as much as I would have liked. But that's why I said to you, what was the penalty count? Because it was incessant, and there was some very, very strange calls. Like we can point to the moments where the Eels lost it themselves. Like I said, the intercept
was
pass,
a big one, 12-point turnaround.
And even that drop ball in the red zone, because it went from the Eels being on the attack to in the very same set of 6, the Panthers going up the other end and score. They also scored off a horrible forward pass in the lead up to a try, which should have been pulled up. Key moments: the Eels score a try in the first half. A melee erupts after the try is scored. Penrith players sent to the sin bin, and then 2 Eels players are sent to the sin bin, including Chris Petrus. So it was 12 on 11, and the Eels did exceptionally well to hold on there, because 12 on 11 is very different to 13 on 12, because the spaces just start to appear everywhere when you're trying to defend with an 11-man team on the full-size field. And then Chris Petrus comes back into the game after his 10 minutes in the bin, does a head-eye tackle, is immediately dismissed straight back to the bin by the referee. So the Eels had 2 periods of time where they were down a player and somehow hung on during that time, but couldn't hang on over the distance of the 80 minutes. I thought the first half, John, Lincoln Fletcher was outstanding. I mean, there was a lot of good performances in probably the first 50 to 60 minutes of the game from the Eels, but Lincoln Fletcher's first half, you couldn't have wanted more from a halfback.
It's left you wondering what could have been this year without that hamstring injury, which has really curtailed a lot of his hypothetical playing time this season. Because he's come back and been very impressive. He dominated against Manly, came up and played against the Roosters in Cup, and I thought for a rookie in a team that had a whole lot of struggles in that game, performed admirably, and has gone back and dominated 40 minutes here. but unfortunately for the Eels, couldn't see it through because of everything that happened in the second half in terms of penalties, in terms of the errors that they made.
Yeah. So anyway, what I really liked was just his voice out there and the way he was organising the team. There were sets of 6 there where he was taking like 3 to 4 first receipts of the football and just organising these troops around him, and he looked like what you want from a dominant halfback is what he looked like. Yeah. So really, 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 really good performance from Lincoln Fletcher. Unfortunately, the Eels have sunk out of finals contention really in Jersey Flegg after being there for such a long time.
Did such a great job for the majority of the season, but them's the breaks. And it does make you wonder if we're going to see a sort of changing of the guard at cup level now because of that. Will they be a bit more pragmatic and players that aren't going to be here next year with top 30 contracts versus someone like Lincoln Fletcher? Because again, the coach has established, and it's not. I want to stress that while Riles may have said that, sort of alluded to the 50 games being a key number, it's not going to be a make or break number 2. There's going to be guys that'll play less games, like Tiankum, that'll get the opportunity. There'll be guys that'll play more games and have to wait for the opportunity. But when the coach sort of lays it out like that, you want to see them pumping the numbers into these young kids, and so that does make you wonder if guys like Fletcher, Petrus. I'm just trying to figure of who else is probably deemed cup eligible this year. Because Stephen Nunn, who we both have a big rap on, it might just be a year too early for him. God, who else would there be in that team? Trace Beatty's been up a couple of years. Jordan Miller, yep. There's guys there. So will we see a few more pragmatic calls there? Have to wait and see. But definitely something to consider.
Yep. Okay, well, John, we're just about at intermission as we are about to go into the NRL, and no guesses for what we'll talk about in the NRL news. But have you got something topical for the musical interlude?
I was so close to playing the Bare Necessities from the Jungle Book, the movie, given that the stream title is the Jungle Book 2026 because of the involvement of the Tigers, the Bears, and the Eels. And I'm not sure if Rudyard Kipling wrote about the Eels so much in his almanac of short stories there. But there was Blue the Bear and Shere Khan the Tiger, and obviously the Perth Bears and the West Tigers, very prominent in the news cycle this week. But I was actually going to play this last week, but we ran out of time for the interlude. But on a topical note outside of football, there was a passing of we'll claim as an Aussie, but a great New Zealand actor in Sam Neill recently. And Neill, starred in many roles, but it was most well known for his role in Jurassic Park. So a bit of a classic musical theme here in honour of the late great Sam Neill. It's funny how far and how stagnant movies have gone since Jurassic Park in terms of the effects and the visuals, because Jurassic Park was cutting edge back then, and now there's bad CGI everywhere, and you look back at some of those movies and go, damn, it holds up. Yeah,
John, that sort of music, it's like it feels like it's on a grand scale, even when I'm just hearing it through the iPad at the moment. You can still tell that it's like big cinema scale music. So
Sam Neill, A great actor, but B, by all accounts, a wonderful individual away from the big screen and the small screen, because he was in Peaky Blinders and a few other things. But one of my favourite sci-fi horror films, Event Horizon, he played a great role in that one there. Actually, he did some great horror, by the way. I think was it The Mouth of Madness? He played a great role there. So he's done a lot of great things, and unfortunately, I think he'd been in a battle of cancer, and I think they were saying it was something beyond that got him at the end. It was really, really awful news. Yeah, Jamie, I was. If it wasn't for the fact that we're paying respects to Neil, I would have played the meme version of that tune, which is one of the classic bits of internet meme culture, with the dodgy melodica. I don't know if you've heard it, Craig, but it's awful in the right kind of ways. Really, really bad, but good.
John, it's pretty hard to avoid talking about the West Tigers. I want to avoid it because I don't want to jinx the Eels playing the Tigers this week. I don't want to rip in so hard.
You know that we're going to play down to them, good or bad anyway. It's just what we do, unfortunately. Regardless of how well they're travelling off the field, regardless of how well we're travelling off the field, we just love to make it a bit of a slobber knocker in regards to our form lines.
So you don't think it matters what we say now about the Tigers? We're not going to.
Let's unleash the stones in the glass house. Let's crack some windows, crack some panes of glass.
Okay, so I watched a large chunk of Fanatics podcast with Paul Kent.
Kenty.
Revealing, yeah, good old Kenty, revealing the intricacies of what transpired with Adam Doueihi and the Tigers management and Benji Marshall and all the comings and goings, including the vaping in the gym. It was like Kenty must have had someone in Dewey's camp.
Literally there is
transcripts.
Exactly. There is obviously some salt to be taken with this because this is information being fed very clearly from one side. But there is always an element of truth to stuff like this. But the question is, where do you draw the line? But there are some pretty outrageous claims in that, which I'm sure you're going to elaborate on.
Just in terms of the lack of, if this is true, we're talking about, it was alleged that Benji just told Adam Doueihi he could please himself when it came to challenging the judiciary decision. Mentioned
it wasn't supported by his coach at the judiciary. I think there was accusations of being selfish. I think as a player, obviously the vaping in the gym was what Doueihi pushed back at the coach. Which, if there is even a grain of truth to that, that is just insane. That there is a standard accepted by any team, whether it's the Tigers, the Eels, or whatnot, of vaping while you're working out. Like, that is crazy. So, I hope for the Tigers' sake it's not true. I hope for Parramatta's sake it is, so they can be a little bit short of breath on the weekend.
And since then we've had some current and a lot of former players saying that if they were in the Tigers team that they would refuse to play with Adam Doueihi, that that it would just be like that the Tigers should have taken some disciplinary action against him to say that what he did just wasn't acceptable, to send a message to the rest of the playing group. That it was interesting comments and questions that have been asked by various pundits, and really we're all thinking or have asked the same questions ourselves. Would Adam have done the same thing if Craig Bellamy was the coach, if Trent Robinson was the coach, if Wayne Bennett was the coach? Would he have dared to say to any of them, you know what, I'm not playing this week?
No.
Now you can turn that all around and say, would those coaches have made the same sort of decisions as Benji Marshall? Would those coaches have allowed the situation to fester where it got to that point? So I guess it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other where you point the finger. But I think we could all agree that no, he would not have tried that on some of those more seasoned coaches. It wouldn't have flown. He wouldn't have dared, and he probably would have been out on his ass for a number of weeks if he had tried it on that. Now, was he justified in his complaints? Was it his actions, however, that were poorly advised? Now, according to the Kenty story, the West CEO said to him, look, take a few days off, get yourself together. And that seemed to be that was the message around him not playing. I don't know. I don't know what the truth is or what the truth isn't.
And look, it's one of those things where, look, Isaac Moses is the manager for Adam. And we know that Isaac's not afraid to poison the well and use some asymmetrical warfare tactics when it comes to the rugby league process. He's obviously very savvy in that regard. And the Tigers went through that to an extent with Galvin the year before. But the fact that there's now 2 incidents of the playmakers being upset and coming on the back of Adam re-signing long-term with the Tigers as well. He signed that big 3-year extension with him and could have gone elsewhere. We had interest from the Dragons. So he recommitted to him. Yeah, this is a case where obviously there's going to be things you can point at both sides and say they've done wrong. But where does the lion's share of the blame go, or the Tigers' share of the blame go, I suppose? And it is easy to say, point at the Tigers, but I think maybe that is increasingly looking like it might be the case. They took a very aggressive punt on Benji. For a coach that I don't think it really achieved much, and giving him a 5-year extension, which seems to be fully guaranteed. I think that was something else that Kemp brought up in his podcast, that there are no easy outs for the Tigers of this deal. So they're all in on Benji. And having this pop up again it's a rough look, because as much as Moses may be, agitating and whatnot, and he very well could be given his history, I'm certainly expecting that there is definitely some stuff going on there. If anything of what Adam is leveling at the club as his issues about standards not being met by other players, whether it's favoritism or athletic misconduct in the gym, or vaping and whatnot, then it's a terrible look for the Tigers, and it doesn't point towards the club going in the right direction. I've already seen them. They had a bright start this year, but there was somewhat a combination of playing with confidence, which goes a long way in the NRL, and also just the right schedule at the right time. And they got hit by the Luai stuff, got hit by some injuries, and they've just fallen off a cliff. And they may beat us on the weekend, Craig. They may jump us because, like I said, we love to play down to the Tigers regardless of how good or bad we're travelling. But there's if I'm a Tigers fan, I'm really upset because look, Tigers fans don't deserve this shit. I know that there's rivalry between us and them, and you always want to stick the boot in for that sort of stuff. But their ineptitude really, sometimes it makes me feel good to be a Para fan, which is, given where we've been and where we're still at, we've got all our own frustrations of our club, but they've done the things that people want us to do in terms of splashing the big dollars, and it's blown up in their face massively. And they just... John,
I've got a long memory. They gave it to me deluxe, Tigers fans on socials.
Yeah, look, the good Tigers fans don't deserve it. There are, if you're active on socials, there are certainly some very, very wordy Tigers fans out there that absolutely can have the egg on the face. But just if this was Parramatta, you'd be really upset, wouldn't you? Like if you had this isn't a Lomax situation for us where this is a player that just straight up was chasing the money, like he was just a mercenary. This is their best player on form this year, wanting to, not being supported by his coach at the judiciary. And the other thing too is apparently he wasn't told by the coach that he wasn't playing. It's been posited by Doueihi's camp that he was told by a friend or an acquaintance that he missed out on selection as halfback. So there's just all sorts of issues there. And I know that like Parramatta fans, we get tired of the media, browbeating us and dragging us down in the press. Although we often deserve some, bad headlines. This is 100% a problem that they're making. Like they deserve all the negative press and all the milking from the media that they're getting. NRL 360, NRL Tonight, all the podcasts running this into the ground. Unfortunately, they deserve it because they've created this problem. And maybe it blows up in our face on Sunday. Maybe they play a great game. Maybe Adam has a man of the match performance. I don't know. It doesn't fix their issues long term though. What he has said based on what Ken has relayed to the public. Like, I don't see how that position's tenable for Adam moving forwards. If he thinks there's genuine favoritism to certain factions of players and players not meeting standards in the gym, and the coach is letting it happen, then it's either him or it's Benji. And based on the financial compensation that the club is looking at, it's going to be Benji's way, not his way.
I'm not sure which way I wanted this to go, John, because I'd much rather play the Tigers without Adam Doueihi than with him. But whether his inclusion this week is disruptive to them is another question. But let's move on from them to the Knights, where they lost both Dylans to nasty injuries on the weekend. And it seems to be sometimes when you get one really horrible injury in a match that a team will suffer a second one. And it's, Dylan, I don't even want to talk about what we saw with Dylan Lucas. That was horrific. Like, that was really, really a horrible injury that as someone who's had a nasty
the compound
triple leg break.
Yeah.
It was like seeing the shape of his ankle and leg and thinking, well, he's lucky he didn't end up with a compound fracture with that sort of shape.
It stayed inside the skin. Just.
And I was lucky I didn't get a compound fracture with the break to my ankle and both leg bones. But I obviously had an interesting shape as well. I didn't want to look at it after. I looked at it once and I didn't want to look at it again. But when the paramedics kept bringing in other paramedics to look at my leg, I knew it was obviously
that's my favourite. When the medical specialists always have to drag someone and say, hey, have you seen all of this? You know, it's a doozy. Yeah.
They weren't hiding it, John.
No.
I could hear them walking up and going, wait till you see this bloke's leg. It's balked, right? And the green whistle, at least at that stage, was still having a wonderful effect. But
you had to get in the old
anyway,
and zipping around. But it was terrible for Dylan Lucas. He's had a great year, obviously. Had a great game against us when we met back in the mid-season. It was the difference between the two teams, honestly. What his contributions were in that game. Earned his way into Origin. Obviously didn't have the greatest Origin debut he could have hoped for, but is an Origin caliber player. Got the big extension at the Knights, which is nice that he got that done before the injury, but God, that sucked to see. And then, like you said, that segued almost imperfectly into the Dylan Brown injury, and that was always a concern, wasn't it? Dylan did a partial tear of his ACL for the Eels at the end of 24, I want to say. Was it the end of his second to last season for us? And that was always going to be a consideration moving forwards. And when they did the test, the draw test on the ground, it is an incredibly, not 100% accuracy, but when the trainers do that test, it's very, very predictive of whether you've done your ACL, and you could tell from the response that it didn't look good. There was a 24 hours of he hasn't. Maybe it's going to be a piece. I think PCL is what they're talking about, a posterior cruciate ligament, and it turns out to be an ACL, and that is just look. Part of that is always a concern about signing him for the Knights, but it is also just shit luck. And Dylan's having a fantastic season. Had grown as a playmaker, you really saw that. And I know that some of that is the Knights just adapting really nicely to the new rule set or new interpretations. But Dylan was having a fantastic year and had been pushed out of his comfort zone in that move to Newcastle, and it elevated his game because of it. And it sucks to see him wiped out for deep into next season. Like, it's going to be midway through next year until he returns, and he'll probably need the rest of that season.
It'll probably
to get back to normal.
You would think it's going to be May, June, something like that by the time he'd be back.
Yeah, the Spoon Bowl game was the one we did the partial tear. Thanks, guys. I thought so. The big win we had against the Tigers. That sucks. Dylan's a fantastic kid. He's going to be remembered as an Eel for mine. Like, I know he's going to spend 10 years in Newcastle, but we saw him as a 15-year-old playing Harold Matts for the Eels. And it just sucks to see it happen, man. And I know, thankfully for Dylan, ACLs are nowhere near the devastating injury to your career they used to be. But going to be a long layoff for him. And for Newcastle, one of the, if not the breakout teams of this year, a genuine great story. Sure, it's a death knell in their season. Losing your strike back role, losing your star playmaker, they could still make the 8 because they've got a lot of contributors in that team. Kalen Ponga is obviously a superstar, and they've got other guys that can step in like Fletcher Sharp and Fletcher Hunt. But you lose your best back rower, you lose your best half. If you make the 8, you're making up the numbers. That sucks for them because they're having such a great season.
And Dylan Brown is like it was a standout performance this year for him, considering that he hadn't really ever shown the inclination to be a game managing half and to elevate his game this season. But one of the areas that they're going to miss him, and we found out the hard way as well about missing Dylan Brown, is what he brings to the team in defence. Mm-hmm. And just how he tidies up one edge.
Yeah, the preeminent defensive half in the game, and maybe one of the best defensive halves of all time, honestly. Like you said, Craig, he solidifies an entire edge the way that no other half does in this game, like in the present day product. Yeah. He's so good defensively, and he elevated his game offensively too. Was taking more responsibility of the team, had taken on a lot of the long kicking and was doing that proficiently. Not incredibly, but proficiently. Yeah, it's a huge blow to the Knights. It sucks to see that two really fun players to watch getting sidelined like that, and it sucks to see a former Eel that you generally want to see do well cop such a serious injury. So my condolences.
And
to the Knights.
when you get injuries around that sort of injury around this time of year, it also sucks because it impacts 2 seasons.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, you got to go and plan for half your season. Not having Dylan available, it sucks.
Yeah. So, and then we also know that it generally takes a little while for a player to come back to anywhere near who they were from an ACL. Like they can still come back, but sometimes it takes, the following season before
you won't see the best
they really
of Dylan
get the strength
until
and confidence
28.
back.
I think, yeah. That's always a frustration, is that he'll come back. He'll play some good football, but he won't be back to full go until season 2028, sorry.
Yep. And finally, John, and this is really, I think, as a consequence of what the Eels did last Thursday night, Ivan Cleary has relegated Blaise Talungi.
We almost perfectly timed because Parra Butchbird was actually bringing that up in chat. Yeah, big Team West Tuesday news. Blaise Talungi dropped to reserve grade. It's been on the cards for a few weeks because of, I guess, reading into the comments of Greg Alexander on the Fox panel, who is obviously a very plugged-in member of the Penrith. He's on the Penrith board and part of the Penrith setup there, who I won't say he disparaged Blaise, but he was pretty critical of Blaise. And this comes on the back of the Eels really targeting Talungi last week. And you saw at the end of that game, Craig, Milky Jenkins bringing that whole edge in for what could have been taken as like a bit of a kumbaya session, but it was to lay down the law, read the riot act for what the Eels had done to him in their defensive setups. And yeah, Blaise has now paid the price. What do you think, mate? Was it justified? What does it mean for Blaise in the big picture? Because I don't know, I put a bit of weight behind Alexander's comments. Like, to have a board member of the team make a public comment like that on broadcast, that's not a light statement to make, to put that kind of criticism of a young player out there.
Yeah, I think we've seen other games this year where Blaise and young McLean have had their defensive struggles. Parramatta probably targeted them more than any other team has targeted them this year. And it was something that caused the commentators like Brandy to really zero in on, to put a spotlight on it. And I think when you got comments about how Ricky Stewart will be looking at this and no guess as to what his plans will be, et cetera, et cetera. I think it was inevitable that there was going to be a change made. Now, we know the talent that Blaze has. There's obviously a bit of a flaw in the defensive technique, and it's got nothing to do with him not putting his body on the line or not chasing the collision, but there's obviously a technique issue. One of the things that we remembered when Blaze was coming through pathways
was his aggression and prowess in defense.
That was one of his strengths. Yeah, he was a very aggressive, physical defender.
But between his first year, first grade at Parramatta, and what we've seen from him at Penrith since, he has really struggled to adapt to the bigger and faster bodies in the NRL. And how much of it is technical? I would say most of it's technical, or at least processing then combined with execution. But yeah, do you think that it raises a question mark about his status at Penrith? Like, because I don't know. Like,
well, look, John, the way I see it is, number one, every NRL player needs to be a really solid defender anyway. Yeah. Like, if you can't tackle, you're not in the NRL. Now, having said that, with Blaze, he is, I think, a uniquely talented attacking player. He's got great vision. In the past, teams like the Roosters, for example, have tried to hide Walker out on the sidelines defensively. Now, he's an Origin player now. So if we think about that, some of his defensive struggles, and he's now seen as being, he wasn't hidden in Origin. So look, I think when you've got a player who is that talented in one aspect of the game, that there's no way that you give up on it and you go, well, look, no, he's not going to make it because he can't tackle. For mine, it's a technique issue. I haven't sat and looked and tried to work out what the technical problem is, but I think he'd be a player that's coachable. That in the Penrith system, you'd think. Now, mind you, like, obviously they would have been working on him. This is not something that would have been new to them, but what's new to them is clubs now openly seeing this is where we're going to send
really
the attack
after him.
And
21 years of age, 60 first grade games near enough, 59 to his name. I don't think Penrith pulled the plug on him just yet, but maybe something for Parramatta and other clubs to monitor, like what his status is. Obviously,
would you take Blaze back at Parramatta?
I would take him back with a view to play him in centre, maybe, and then his positional versatility, opening doors. Not dissimilar to like someone like Avarillo, that once he sort of figures himself out in the NRL, he's a guy that can play 5'8", can play fullback if you need him to as well. But yeah, maybe it doesn't mesh well with the system there at Penrith, which would be. It reflects on Blaze, obviously, but sometimes a player just doesn't work. Dom Young didn't work at the Sydney Roosters. Works great at Newcastle. It's how it is sometimes. I would certainly be monitoring it, Craig. I think, given that we have a need for talent in the squad, even if it's flawed talent with Blaze right now, I'd bring him back with I think Chat's saying too, an eye to play left centre. He plays left edge for Penrith, like left edge half, not left edge back row. So there is a bit of a fit there. I would be monitoring it. Not to say he's up for grabs, because Penrith took their time bringing him into first grade as well. He didn't debut for 6 or 7 weeks in the first year he was over there. So they probably want to get him back to first grade, but it's a little crack there. Like, that's the sort of thing that when you put a player back down the Reggies like that, I think clubs should be able to do it, but the way things are these days, as soon as you drop a player like that, you just know the manager's like, hang on, what are you doing? When's he coming back? What are you doing? Do we need to start looking elsewhere? So, Yeah, I'd be monitoring it. But big call from Cleary. He brings in Cogger, I believe, isn't it? Not Jack Cole this week, if I'm looking at the team list right. Yeah, it's Jack Cogger that comes in the partner Cleary. And speaking of Jack Cole, by the way, maybe that's why he wasn't playing. He's off to the Bears. I don't know if you saw that, Craig, but 3-year deal for the rangy playmaker.
Yep.
Reasonable signing by the Bears, but more again, it's more of what they've been doing. It's bottom to top recruitment rather than top to bottom recruitment. And we've seen the two different strategies for the Bears and the Chiefs, haven't we? It's very top heavy recruitment for the Chiefs right now. The Bears have been filling out their roster. I guess he's a frontline contender for the halves right now. He'd partner Toby Sexton, right? But there's also Tyron Wishart, who, depending on whether they want to play him at dummy half or in the halves, I guess. And Arpa Twaddle too, who will probably play in the back line for him, less so 5'8". It's a very interesting time for the Bears because they're obviously chasing Junior, but they've still got a lot of.
We're coming full circle on the podcast, John.
Yeah, we are coming full circle, but it's just like I look at that roster, and I know we're obviously very critical of where Parramatta need to be because they've got some holes to fill. Parramatta got holes to fill. The Perth Bears, how much are they like even halfway to a top roster yet? They start training in earnest for season 2027 in just over 2 months, 3 months, roughly. Where are they going to get their cattle?
Yeah, John, and it's not just the top 30. And we're assuming that they are going to have dev players and train and trialers who would be running around for North Sydney in New South Wales Cup. I don't know how they will organise the training for all of that because you're going to have dev players.
What about their opposed sessions?
Yeah, their opposed sessions, all that sort of stuff. When do the players go back over to join any players that are based local in Sydney, say for New South Wales Cup? Now, I don't know the ins and outs of it. I'm assuming that North Sydney will be their feeder team for
reserve grade for
them as an entity and play in New South Wales Cup. But I think they've got some interesting logistical issues in that regard. But again, have they sorted that aspect out? Like the extended roster. That's what would confuse me because we're seeing that they haven't finished the top 30. I haven't seen anything about anyone that will be on a development contract. I haven't seen anything about players that will be on train and trial.
I think, funnily enough, some of the earliest players they signed are dev deals. I think Bidagani, is that how you say it? And someone else were listed as dev players back amongst their very first signings.
Okay.
But that's only a couple of them. So, yeah, they've got a lot to get doing, but there is another addition there.
I'm glad you were on top of it, John. I couldn't remember any of those.
There is another few bits and bobs of news going around. Oh, Tyson Smoothy also joining the Bears. There's another utility player to help them out there. So a bit of action on the Western front there. Meanwhile, there's a report that Shane Flanagan's eyeing a coaching role at the Tigers. Good luck to you, mate, based on what we're seeing there. I
think is he a former Tigers player, Shane Flanagan? I think he played with us. Flanagan. I've got a feeling he might have spent most of his career at Wests, not the Tigers, but at West Magpies.
He was a 42 gamer at the Western Suburbs, 3 games for the Dragons, 33 for the Eels. So yeah, there you go. There is actually a tie there to the less pronounced part of or less public forwards part of the venture there, but he is there nonetheless. So there's reports that take on.
Half, John.
What was that?
Back in the day, I said I didn't mind him as a dummy half for the Eels back in the day. I thought he was a decent player.
Premiership winning coach too, although there was obviously some circumstances behind 2016.
Let's not.
But look, I I guess for the Tigers, that would be a pretty strong external voice to Benji to provide guidance and even, an I say adversarial, but like a guiding adversarial role to Benji there, which they could probably use.
Would Benji be looking over his shoulder at a man that maybe still harbours NRL coaching ambitions?
I would think, sure. Like part of me would say, surely his days as an NRL head coach are done after what happened at the Dragons and how that sort of just petered out to utter irrelevance.
Think about the club we're talking about.
But it's the West Tigers, so yeah, I think Benji would certainly be concerned. He'd probably push back against it. I can understand why the Tigers want to do it because, like, again, it's a bit of oversight, a bit of pushback against a young coach who's installed a lot of his boys in coaching roles around him, which, again, a coach should appoint his staff, but if you're getting an inexperienced coach with a lot of yes men around him, not necessarily a good formula when things go bad, right? So I have to wait and see how that one plays out. The other stuff, Dragons apparently closing in on Cody Nikorima, a player that we'd spoken about as a potential option for the Eels to help bridge towards Fletcher and Talataina. Instead, they obviously landed Jerome Luai, which has changed the equation for the blue and gold. But we've spoken highly of Cody Nikorima. I would say that if they did seal the deal on that might be their best signing because Metcalf is talented but has huge red flags about his injury history and future availability. Keon Koloamatangi, obviously a talented player, but you're paying a premium. And Scott Drinkwater, again, an outstanding attacking player, but is a mercurial defender at best. He oscillates between pretty ordinary there to okay. And he's not being paid small pennies. Chat saying apparently confirmed now 2 years. That would be a good get for him. That instantly solidifies their halves. It means that you've got a genuine frontline playmaker there to partner alongside Metcalf, 6 and 7.
Excuse me. What happens to the king?
Well, for Guffo, it's probably centre or utility. And, I mean, for St. George's sake, they probably should be trotting him out at centre, but a lot of opposition teams will say, no, it's a great idea. He definitely won't be exposed with a lack of pace there, but it does raise a great question for Gufferson. Still a year to run that deal. I don't know. Because he's not going to be playing fullback, not over Scott Drinkwater.
And he won't be playing in the halves.
Not with those two. I mean, we just talk about Metcalf's fragility in terms of availability. So maybe, but then you've still got Atkinson there. I don't know what Flanagan's contract status is with the joint venture. Their joint venture with the Red V there. But, there's a couple of guys there potentially. Plus there's also Larkin King Tongia and who's the young half? Cade Reed? Cade Reed? Is it Cade Reed? They're like there. So there's too many troops in that position for Gufferson to be competing, I think. So, yeah, it's centre or utility or reserve grade.
Mm. Yeah.
And, credit to Guffo. He's still putting his body on the line for him, despite, a murky future at the club. But he's you can see the wear and tear on his body, so I don't know what they do with him.
Yeah. Okay, any other news floating around, John, or are we at the point where we wrap up?
Laurie Doueihi, I think, is quitting the Blues, although I'm not sure if the reports are official. There was a non-report from the NSWRL, but then Channel 7 are reporting that he's quitting on medical grounds. I don't know what's wrong with Laurie. What's this say here? Where is there a transcript? What's going on here? There's some sort of health issue for him, so it's probably not the way you want to go out in that regard, but obviously a series win is great for him and great for New South Wales. And very curious to see who the next coach is going to be, because I know Ivan's sort of indicated he wouldn't mind coaching New South Wales, but that's not next year. I'd be very interested to see who puts their hand up. I know a couple of Boy Cordner, Matt King have both been listed as potential candidates. They've been part of the staff there. It's certainly something to consider for the Blues. Hopefully they get their appointment right there, because they love to take a step back or 5 when it comes to these transitions. And, the other thing too we didn't mention, because we were so focused on the Junior Paulo part of it with the Bears, Craig, but Canberra gave Morgan Smithies free reign to negotiate elsewhere, and he's joined up with the Bears for what is potentially a 5-year deal. I think there's club options for the last few years, but it's like a 3-year deal with like 2 club options at the back end of it. So that gives them a bit more experience in the back row there. So yeah, look, we're asking how they get their squad together. They're putting together a squad, and they've been sort of copying a lot of criticism about how they've gone about it, and I don't think they've necessarily been great. But I do like bottom to. There is merits to both approaches. I think sort of bottom to top recruitment is a little bit underrated, where you build just a good solid core, and then wait for the superstar to come to you if you can with the money. That's what the Dolphins kind of did. They built a solid roster rather than a superstar roster, and have, you know, they managed to hit the right guy with young Katoa there, Isaiah Katoa, and a few other picks there, and they got the hammer before he really broke out as a superstar. So that was savvy recruitment. But my concerns with the Bears are more about, you know, Meninga and whatnot, and their staying power and longevity because of it. I think they're going to be looking for a new coach sooner rather than later, and that's obviously a big concern for them. But they're making some signings.
Yeah. Okay, John. Well, I think that just about wraps things up then. We obviously will have a preview podcast this week because we're not a Thursday game.
Yes.
So
it's not
stand by for our preview podcast, all 5 grades as usual, because we are the most comprehensive Parramatta Eels website and podcast. So you can expect 5 grades previewed in that podcast later this week. And John, again, thank you to our live viewers, our live listeners. Thank you to everyone that's going to watch this or listen to this on replay or via the other platforms that we have this on, like your Spotify's, SoundClouds, all that sort of stuff. Thank you to our sponsors, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, and of course the home of the Eels, Parramatta Leagues Club. Don't forget, although it's an away game this week, it's still at Cumberland Stadium. So the home of the Eels is the place to be as well this weekend. So get to Parramatta Leagues Club, enjoy pre-game over there before heading over to Cumberland Stadium for the main game. And John, as I always say, go you mighty Eels, Parra proud. Thanks everyone.